that a Malawian food safety is specialized in Malawian food safety, and currently he works as a principal research officer in the Department of Fisheries, Minister of Natural Resources and Climate Change. He's already standing next to me here, but I thought you should know more about him so that you can appreciate what will come out of him. He is an expert for National Codex Committee for Malawi, an expert for African Organization for Standardization, a member of Science Diplomacy under TWAS, a focal point International Food Safety Authority Network, and antimicrobial resistance. He holds a master's degree in fisheries and aquatic science from Mzuzu University, a bachelor's degree in the same field, and postgraduate diploma in food science from University of Iceland. With 8 years of experience in teaching and research, he has served as a food curriculum specialist at DeYoung University. His research focuses on fish value chain development and post-harvest loss reduction, which is relatively new in Malawi. He has successfully been involved in designing cod fish value chain, smart fish processing technologies such as solar tent dryers, improved smoking kilns, and modified atmospheric packaging. He represents the department and ministry at Codex Alimentarius that focuses on harmonizing international fish and food standards for promoting fair practices in food trade. Ladies and gentlemen, join me to welcome Mr. James John Banda as he comes to the podium to make his presentation.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies, Prof. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to stand on the existing protocols. I will present to you a topic on outscaling of improved fish processing technologies for sustainable fish value chain development, harvest loss reduction, and bridging the socio-economic gap among actors. Next slide. So this is actually a project that was funded by National Commission of Science and Technology, and we worked as a team, University of Malawi, from Chancellor College, as well as Malawi Bureau of Standards, and the Department of Fisheries. The total amount that we got was closer to 32 million kwacha, Malawian kwacha, and the project start date started in January 2024. Next slide, please. So as an introduction, it is a fact that fish presents the best source of animal proteins as well as other micronutrients, including iron, calcium, zinc, the omega-3 fatty acids, but at the same time, the vitamins. These are very essential because they bring in what we also call the meat factor, as they help to actually in the absorption of other nutrients from other food products. Next slide. However, in Malawi, there has been a transition when it comes to cash composition. Previously, it was almost 50-50, but this time around, there has been a transition. Almost over 90% is represented by small pelagic fish species, which we call the forage species. And then the bigger fish species, which includes the chambo, the bombe, the campango, are actually in the category of 9%. And this transition actually brings in the challenge of post-harvest loss. And by the end of the day, that challenge actually impinges a lot of difficulties on the actors, especially women who are actually a marginalized group, including the youth. And by the end of the day, the consumers will actually be restrained from the best source of animal protein. Next slide, please. Why is this the case? Is because once fish has been caught from its aquatic environment, it undergoes what we call the postmortem changes. And the postmortem changes actually happens in this case. One, the first thing is that the blood will stop flowing, and that is going to be followed by what we call the rigor mortis. The rigor mortis actually is the stiffening of the fish muscle. And if the fish has not actually been well handled, by the end of the day, the microbial sporage is going to come in, which is going to lead to autolysis, which is actually self-digestion of the fish. And by the end of the day, that will also actually lead to microbial sporage, and finally followed by lipid oxidation, which is degradation of fatty acids. Next slide, please. In an event that these actors get the products and then put them on the drying racks, the drying racks, the method itself is not actually efficient. As you can see here, the fish on the drying rack has been covered by maggots. So by the end of the day, the fish is being degraded, but actually the consumer is not aware of what is actually happening on the landing site when the fish is being processed. So in a way, the consumer if he's going to buy such kind of products, it means his health is going to be at risk. Why? Because you talk of issues of foodborne diseases such as cholera. Remember in 2022, what happened? Cholera took an exponential phase and actually claimed a lot of life among Malawians. Next slide, please. If the fish is to be smoked or else parboiled, the method itself that they are using, the current methods have been actually demanding a lot of firewood. And the process of using a lot of firewood actually leads to, for example, in smoking, the fats will be dripping off onto the directly onto the smoking racks. And then that will actually lead to formation of polyaromatic hydrocarbons, which are actually very detrimental to the consumers because they form radicals and they can actually lead to, they can cause cancer. Furthermore, there is multiple handling of the products, and that leads to cross-contamination. Here, a lot of heat is being lost, and by the end of the day, it means more wood is supposed to be used. Next slide, please. So if we get samples from those two methods, we realize that after carrying out a risk profile analysis targeting one thematic area, which is actually microbiology, we had identified Escherichia coli, the Shigella, the Cryptococcus, as well as the Salmonella. These are very, very dangerous microorganisms that are not supposed to be found in food products such as fish. And therefore, we had actually now to say, how do we address this challenge? Next slide, please. We then had to link three components. One, the raw material, as well as the processing method, and then the preservation, as well as the logistic method. The whole idea was to ensure that we produce quality fish products for the value chain actors, so that the consumer who is at the final node should be able to actually have safe as well as quality fish products. Next slide, please. So the project was being implemented in Monkey Bay, in Mangochi, in these landing sites. So this is Lake Malawi. So we have good landing sites like Malembo, Chembe, which is in Cape Macrae, Makawa, as well as the Makanjira side. Next slide, please. So the raw materials, after actually being harvested, they are hygienically handled and then subjected to the improved processing method. What is this improved processing method? Next slide, please. So these are actually, one, the improved smoking kiln, which is trying to address the traditional smoking kiln, as well as the improved cooking stove, which is trying to work on then reducing the normal open parboiling method. If you look here, The improved smoking kiln actually works as, it's more or less like an oven. It works through what we call a closed circuit system. Once the fish products have been actually laid in the smoking racks, the smoking process does not require multiple handling. Furthermore, the heat actually that goes into this smoking kiln is actually, the position is actually on the side. And by the end of the day, there is no contact of the fats, but at the same time, the heat that is actually coming from the fire source. And by the end of the day, there is totally reduced level of polyaromatic hydrocarbons, which by the end of the day leads to quality and safe fish products. Next slide, please. So the products, once they were actually processed, we actually took them for a laboratory analysis just to ensure that they comply with quality as well as safety characteristics. And then we actually carried out the physiochemical analysis, which we had to look on issues of proximate composition, the crude protein, the crude fat, including the moisture content, as well as the level of lipid oxidation. In terms of primary oxidation, which is actually production of lipid hydroperoxide value, but at the same time production of secondary metabolites, which is actually thiobarbituric reactive substances. And finally, we had to work on the microbiological as well as the sensory characteristics to appreciate if the product is actually appealing to the consumer. In the microbiological part, we actually targeted the specific spoilage microorganisms and also the total viable counts, as well as the Listeria monocytogenes, and then the fecal coliform, as well as the Escherichia coli and the Salmonella. So one might actually be interested to see that they, after doing the analysis using selective medias, we had to isolate these microorganisms separately, and then in the analysis of the data set, after actually enumerating the colonies were actually represented as log colony forming units, because bacteria, they actually kind of multiply using what we call the binary fusion. So they take actually a geometric mean, not an arithmetic mean. Next slide, please. So this is what I've already explained, the chemical analysis, but at the same time, the microbiological analysis. Next slide, please. And that's how actually we analyze the data. We analyze the data. For chemical data, was analyzed using Microsoft Excel, version 2013. The whole idea was to develop graphs for evolution of the products, which were actually kept after processing to define the safety as well as the storage life of the products. And the microbiological was actually analyzed using logarithmic of the number of colony forming units, which was represented as a log colony forming units per gram, and used to define the log phase growth function of the bacteria in the stored fish products. Next slide, please. So for the chemical part, you can see that under those different smoking kilns, the improved smoking kiln has actually low level of polyaromatic hydrocarbons compared to actually the traditional smoking kiln. And this actually presents that element of the health safety of the product, but now onto the part of the consumer. Next slide, please. In terms of the microbiological part, if you check the fresh fish, which was actually used as the reference point, the levels in terms of the total viable counts are log 4.2 compared to similar microorganisms actually that were actually literally found in the improved smoking kiln, which are actually literally very low. If you look at in the improved smoking kiln compared with the traditional smoking kiln, you would see that the levels are higher in the traditional smoking kiln as compared to the improved smoking kiln. So in other ways, there is actually a drastic decline in terms of the total viable counts that can be actually allowed to multiply if the product has been processed using the improved smoking kiln. And consequently, you can see that there is literally negligible number of actually specific sporage microorganisms, but at the same time, the fecal as well as the excretion coli, the pathogenic enteric microorganisms in the improved smoking kiln. And this is actually very essential when it comes to meeting the guidelines, which are actually very essential for the safety as well as the quality of the smoked products, which is going to be used as food. Because if it's not safe, then it's not food. Next slide, please. So if you look at the proximate composition here, similarly we saw actually a drastic low amount of moisture content that was actually significantly reduced when actually the product were processed using the improved smoking kiln compared to the traditional smoking kiln. This is very essential for storage life of the product, but at the same time for the availability of microorganisms, because for the microorganisms to multiply, they need availability of moisture content. We also saw actually an increase in terms of crude protein content, possibly due to the reduction of the moisture content during the process of dehydration. Next slide, please. So the products that were actually under storage, you see they were stored actually under weeks, through a week storage. So if you see in the improved smoking kiln, I think the traditional smoking kiln, you see that the levels of the total viable counts were significantly higher, and then they passed the threshold of log 5, which is actually the most recommended by FAO, but at the same time the WHO, when it comes to the threshold of the total viable counts in processed food products. But subsequently, the other smoking kilns were able actually to push the processed products into an increase in terms of the storage life. Next slide, please. In terms of the primary as well as secondary oxidation, we see that the primary oxidation was more pronounced in traditional smoking kiln. The same applies to actually secondary oxidation in the traditional smoking kiln, and then it was totally retarded, in other words, reduced in the improved smoking kiln. Why? Possibly because lipid oxidation is a function of availability of moisture content at the same time, but because of the processing method itself, which actually works through a closed circuit system, it means that actually ended up reducing the amount of fat and helped in the subsequent storage of the product by the end of the day. So if you see here the peaks, it means actually that's the largest point where the oxidation has reached. And the subsequent drawback shows that a decline in terms of oxidation process. So if you go in shops, for example, if you see smoked products that are actually developing more like lasting, that's the actually element of oxidation. Next slide, please. So in terms of post-harvest loss reduction, we used actually what we call the load tracking process. Why we are trying to actually follow the product from the processing node up to the market node. And what we saw is that there has been actually a subsequent decrease in terms of post-harvest loss reduction in terms of the physical, but at the same time the quality. The quality element in terms of the loss reduction is a function of the processing method, which actually ended up easing and maintaining the sensory characteristics, but at the same time helping the product not to be exposed to degradation by microorganisms. Next slide, please. So we have also actually diffused in an element of quality assurance. The whole idea, we know that fish as food is supposed to actually be processed using what we call code of hygienic practices, as well as good manufacturing practices, which are an element of actually quality control and quality assurance. This is very essential because in an event that the products are not subjected to these thematic areas, by the end of the day, the elements of those pathogenic microorganisms will still actually appear on the product when actually they reach the consumer. How will this appear? Next slide, please. If you see on the landing site, a typical landing site in a fishing village looks like this one. So what will happen here is that it's going to be flooded by different people. Those of you who actually maybe like reading literature, if you read a paper by Professor Kingsley Masamba, he will tell you that issues of food safety have got a direct link onto the SDGs, the Global Sustainable Development Goals, both SDG number 1, but at the same time SDG number 2. What we see here is a typical landing site in Lake Malawi, where others are actually bathing their kids, and someone has come and defecated here. But this is actually the fish actually coming from the aquatic environment, the water, and then they have landed, and others have taken that fish and throw it on the sand. What we see here is that the fecal materials here, which might actually contain other fecal enteric microorganisms, with the flies, they can actually move from one point onto the fish, but the consumer is not aware of actually the whole process. So in other ways, anyone buying such kind of products, if actually they have not actually been well processed, then actually ended up maybe scouring. So if, in other ways, if you end up scouring, just know that you have tasted somebody's feces. So this is actually how spread. So this is actually what we have gone so far. If those products are cooked, that's the kind of appearance that is going to you are going to get without addition of oil. Everything is actually well assimilated by the end of the day. Next slide, please. So we have linked this now as a chain. Currently, we want to link these value chain actors with other opportunities. They should still remain within the cooperatives, but at the same time, we also depend a lot when it comes to issues of collaborations. So we collaborate, as I've already said, with University of Malawi, Malawi Bureau of Standards, but also other researchers whom we believe that they came before us. Because if you look at a quote by Albert Einstein, he says, and I quote, "For me, if I have seen further, it's because I stood on the shoulders of the giants." So we are lucky today again to see that, for example, we have got Professor Kingsley Masamba, who is actually also an expert in issues of food safety, and then we have learned a lot from him, how he actually tried to diffuse issues of aflatoxins in maize, and then linking it actually to issues of consumers' health. And then we borrowed that leaf to say the same element can actually apply within the fish value chain, because if it's not safe, then it's not actually food. Final slide. So in terms of the acknowledgement, so we thank the National Commission of Science and Technology, NST, as a Science Granting Council, SGCI, for funding the project under the public-private partnership in fisheries and aquaculture, under the Science Granting Council initiative. At the same time, collaborating institutions, the Malawi Bureau of Standards, the Department of Fisheries, but also University of Malawi, and the whole research team for helping us to reach this far, including the value chain actors whom we are working with. Thank you very much for your attention. This is actually what we have achieved. And that's a cool day around one of the landing sites in Malawi. You see the fish before it comes to Limbe or else the Devil Street. That's how it's processed. But I know you have seen a lot. You have seen others with maggots. I know, take care of what you consume. You need to be very careful, because if it's not safe, then it's not food. Thank you very much.
Indeed, thank NCST, as the presenter has ended with. Is it? Okay. I'll ask you, when after all the presenters have made their presentations, you come and sit there to answer some questions. Give him another round of applause. As you know, now I'm asking myself, if I find a fish in my house, am I going to go straight for it? And he kept on saying that if it is not safe, it's not food. Hey, what a powerful message. Now I invite the next presenter, who is Professor Fanuel Kapute. Are you around? Are you the one? Ah. Are you coming? Okay. Professor Kapute holds a PhD in fisheries and aquaculture from the University of Malawi. He has worked in the fisheries sector for many years, and over 20 years in the academia at Luana. This is Longwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And now with Mzuzu University up north, where he currently serves as Director of Research with over scientific publications. He has supervised over 10, 25, and 90 PhD, master's, and undergraduate research studies, respectively. Professor Kapute has also conducted several local and international consultancies, as well as being the principal research investigator for several projects, including the current CAGE Culture project in Likoma, funded by NCS. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Professor Kapute to the podium.
Thank you, Bwana Moderator. We believe in teamwork, so presentation on my behalf, but we can be fared with the questions together, no problem. So my colleague come here and make the presentation. Actually, James was presenting about fish process. He was presenting about the product, but would want to present about how to produce the product. Without us, there's no James. So we need fish.
Thank you very much, Prof. All protocols observed. As the Prof has said, I'll actually present on the team. I'll be presenting on a project looking at the small-scale cage aquaculture in Likoma, of course, which is being implemented by Mzuzu University, together with the Fisheries Department, especially Likoma District Council. Next slide. That's the presentation outline. We'll look at the introduction, project objectives, the activity carried, the preliminary findings, the challenges, conclusion, and the way forward. Next slide. Yeah, you agree with me, looking at the importance of fish, looking at the dietary aspect as well as the economic role in Malawi. Of course, that's the statistics. The next slide. The main issue here, we're looking at the dwindling of fish catches from the world, of which most of us will agree with us that the catches that we've been experiencing possibly 10 years down the line is not the same that we are getting. As such, the fish production, we are shifting from the pond-based to cage culture. Of course, there are challenges accrued to pond-based aquaculture. Next slide. This time, as the title of our project indicates, we are promoting small-scale cage culture in Likoma district. Basically, we're looking at the more of advantages if we are to promote cage culture versus the pond-based aquaculture. Next slide. Looking at the objectives of the project, we're looking at investing the role of cage culture, that's in Likoma. And again, we want to see the profitability of cage culture, looking at the communities that are doing aquaculture in Likoma. But at the same time, we want to explore the opportunities that are linked with the cage culture production. Next slide. Yeah, and basically this project, we are working with the youth group in Likoma. So basically, we want to see and explore, if you're looking at the aspect of employment, the aspect of income, and again, the nutritional status of the local households through cage culture aquaculture. Next slide, please. As I've indicated earlier on, this project is happening in Likoma. Of course, in Likoma, the community there, their mainstay, we're looking at the bank match on fishing. So the coming in of cage aquaculture will bring in an aspect of conservation as well. Next slide. So far, being a research-based project, there have been some few activities that have been implemented so far. We're looking at the aspect of, we had a site selection and feasibility studies that were done just to confirm and appreciate at the sites where we'll be doing our small-scale cage aquaculture. Will it be viable? Secondly, we also had to do the element of capacity building. We had to train the farmers, of which the farmers which are the target group. We have 29 beneficiaries that we're working with. Next slide. Of course, in this project, when the cage was designed, of course, in partnership with the Aqualink, and it was installed. Thereafter, after the installment of the cage, we had to procure the fingerlings, and I'm glad to say that the stocking of this cage was done sometime in March. Of course, we made it available with the formulated feed. That's what they are using. Next slide. For better performance, growth performance of fish, we also had to look at the aspects of water quality. So, in that regard, we were also checking in terms of temperature, the DOs. And on fish health management, we made sure that we had to correct the fingerlings that were stocked in that cage in Likoma from a well-recognized hatchery operator from Mzuzu. So far, since the fish were stocked, we have been conducting periodical sampling so that we should have a picture on how our fish are performing in the cage. Next slide. Of course, within the component of capacity building, we had some element where we had to capacitate the beneficiaries in terms of the maintenance and repair. Then there were also element of record keeping. Because they're supposed to know where are they coming from, what has been the investment aspect into the project. Next slide. Of course, area one also mentioned on the element of water quality, which we are really mindful to get hold or get track of those parameters. And finally, we were through our the periodical sampling aspects. We were to deduce or just to project what is it that we expect from the project. So far, the last sampling that we had, it was after 180 days. So putting everything equal, 120 days from now, we should be harvesting the fish. And there are the projections that have harvesting after the 6 months that we've projected. That's what is the community or our targeted beneficiary. That's what they're expected to get. Next slide. Of course, just a reflection, a graph reflecting on the parameter, one of the, which is temperature. Next slide. Statistics on the key water quality or key water quality parameters that we had to focus much. The next slide. These are preliminary findings reflecting where we're starting from to where we are. That the last sampling was done on 7th July. Next slide. Yeah, the projected final weight of an individual fish, as of now, we're indicating that it will be at 102 104.2 grams. Of course, the carrying capacity, looking at the stocking density, we stocked the cage 30,000 Oleochromis shiranas. As I've said, at the final 180 days, that's after 6 months, that's what we anticipate to realize. Of course, in terms of the business kind of model, the community has identified an off-taker and they have made an agreement by the name Nyampesi Fish Products, so that after their harvest, they should be able to link it with the Nyampesi Fish Products as their main off-taker. Next slide. Of course, there are some challenges that we've encountered in the due course. Of course, we also indicated some proposed mitigations. One of it being we had some hiccups in terms of the funding, but of course, in between we had the devaluation aspect, which at least made it we had to face some challenges in the price of materials that we used for the cage, for procuring of the cage materials. And the other challenge that we are facing is the hatchery operators are based in Zuzu. So Likoma, we don't have the hatchery operator. So of course, we have also proposed some suggestions in terms of how do we mitigate those challenges. Next slide. In conclusion, we anticipate that the findings highlighted the improved income generation and employment opportunities, reinforcing aquaculture as a viable alternative to capture fisheries among the youth, as I've earlier highlighted that this will be an element of conservation. There will be an element of conservation in this implementation of this project. The final slide, I think. As a way forward, we're saying in the face of a future booming cage culture industry on Lake Malawi, the project recommends strategic investment and continued conservation efforts to ensure the ecological and economic sustainability of our lake. Thank you very much. Final, we might just appreciate some slides on some of the activities that they were taking in Likoma. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you. Should we thank Professor Kapute or
Benjamin Somanje.
Benjamin Somanje. Is that Somanje?
Yes, Somanje.
Hey, please, another round of applause for Benjamin. I understand during discussion they are ready to answer questions jointly. Thank you very much. The next presentation is from Wes Muhango. Are you around?
Yes, I'm around.
Please come forward. Dr. Wes Muhango is an associate professor of agronomy at Luana, Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources. He's based at Bunda College campus, Crop and Soil Science Department. Research areas of interest are agronomy, soil health management, and agroecology. Over the past 10 years or more, she has worked with farmers in different agroecologies on research focusing on sustainable intensification of maize legumes systems, farmers' engagement through farmer research network, and agroeconomic packages for groundnut production. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Wes Muhango as she presents his findings of the study. Wes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much. This afternoon I'll be sharing with you some of the lessons and findings from the project that we are implementing with support from the National Commission for Science and Technology under the Science Granting Council initiative. This work we are implementing in collaboration with the Malawi University of Science and Technology from Zimbabwe. Our work is focusing on the evaluation of symbiotic efficiency and the competitiveness of indigenous microsymbionts. Specifically, we are looking at rhizobia and mycorrhiza. Our interest is to find ways of improving productivity of our food and the forage legumes. Next. Yeah, so this afternoon I'll go through some of the work that we've done. So the introduction, some of the activities that we've done, and some of the lessons, and our ideas on how we can move forward with the work that we are doing. Yeah, so as a matter of introduction, we know that here in Malawi, most farmers, they prioritize maize because it is a staple food crop. But farmers also are growing a number of legumes, different legumes, especially the food legumes, for various benefits. And some areas also in Malawi, you know, farmers, they have a lot of livestock. Livestock are being raised for dairy as well as for beef. In order for the farmers to optimize productivity of the food and forage legumes, they need to have certain interventions. And once they do that, they can also meet other household or goals in terms of optimizing the different benefits that they get from the legumes. And for the livestock farmers, if also they have access to fodder. Actually, these days, if you go around in the country, farmers, they complain that livestock productivity is going down. And one of the challenges is that they don't have access to adequate fodder to support livestock productivity. And then if you're looking at the crops themselves, one of the key challenges is that here in Malawi, in most areas, there's a problem related to soil health. Most of the soils are degraded, so if you go there, you find that organic matter is very low. In most cases, from literature, it's reported that the amount of organic matter averages less than 15 grams per kilogram of soil. So that is very low in terms of supporting productivity. And the other limiting nutrient in most farms is nitrogen. And these days, with the high cost of inorganic fertilizers, farmers are unable to meet the cost of the inorganic fertilizers. As a result, there are other options that farmers can invest in. So our project was looking at food and forage legumes because we know they are important in terms of supporting nutritional goals for both human beings as well as livestock. But also if you look at some of the soil health challenges, especially nitrogen, we know that legumes are key because legumes are unique in that they can convert the atmospheric nitrogen into inorganic nitrogen forms through a process that is called biological nitrogen fixation. When you pull a legume plant, in the roots there, you would see what we call nodules. I think in Chichewa they call them mandolo. That one is the factory where actually that nitrogen is being fixed. So once that nitrogen is fixed, you can support legume productivity, but also you are assured that that legume will fix nitrogen, which can help to address some of the soil health challenges. Next. Yeah, so even though we have multiple benefits from these legumes, we know that when we go out there, soils are different. And you find that, like on this slide, you find that a farmer has planted, this one is the soybean. A farmer has done all the agronomic practices very well. The field looks very clean, but the soil is not growing well. So there could be multiple challenges. But our interest was now to look at the rhizobia, which is very key in terms of supporting that process of nitrogen fixation. So this farmer, maybe on this field, if he had just used some rhizobia inoculant, that could have boosted our legume productivity. But in this case, despite the good field management, you will see that that farmer is not going to optimize productivity. Next. Yeah, so what are microsymbionts? Microsymbionts, basically, we're just looking at organisms that have got mutualistic relationships or positive interactions, in this case with legumes. So these microsymbionts, so for example, if you think about rhizobium bacteria, I said that the legumes, they fix nitrogen in the root nodules. And for this process to take place, it requires to have the rhizobium bacteria and the leguminous plant. And once these nodules have been formed, then you are assured that your legume is going to fix nitrogen. And then you can have all those other benefits in terms of productivity, soil health, and other benefits that you can get from the legumes. The other microsymbionts, you can also think about fungi that form associations with the roots of higher plants. So these mycorrhiza fungi are also important because once you have that mycorrhiza, as you can see from this picture, they extend the root surface area. So once the root surface area is extended, it helps for the plant to access more water, but also to access nutrients that are not mobile in the soil. Next. Yeah, so I think on this one, I've already indicated some of these benefits on the previous slide, just to emphasize that these microsymbionts are important for supporting the ecosystem services in terms of soil health benefits. But also, once you have any fixation in the farming systems, it can help to increase efficiency. A farmer might save on the inorganic fertilizer costs just by integrating legumes in the farming system. And in terms of also just environmental health, these legumes, they help cycling nutrients, thereby helping to support the other ecosystem functions within the ecosystems. And I think the last two benefits are just related to the fungi in that they also help to improve some of the soil physical properties, such as soil aggregation, and that is the key in terms of also supporting other key functions in terms of soil moisture retention in the soil. Next. Yeah, so in this project, our main goal was to evaluate the symbiotic efficiency of some of the indigenous microsymbionts so that we could increase productivity of food and forage legumes. Next. Yeah, so which food legumes are we working on? So this is work in progress. So we are working on different legumes, so groundnut, soybean, cowpea, pigeon pea, as well as the common bean. And for the forage legumes, we had planned to work on those three, but currently, I think we are working on the first two. So the forage legumes, one of the benefits is that they also have high protein content, which helps boost the nutrition of livestock and the associated productivity benefits. Yeah, so what are some of the activities that we've been implementing? I'll go through the process that we've gone through. The process of making sure that we produce an inoculant that would help to improve legume productivity. It requires, as first, we need to have the root nodules that are harvested from the legumes. So in our work, we have been growing legumes, whether under greenhouse conditions, but also under field conditions. After growing those legumes, we collect the root nodules from the legumes. After collection of those root nodules, we do isolations. From the isolations, there are various processes that take place in the lab where we end up collecting the rhizobia. And then as part of the work, we also need to screen out, because we know there are different types of rhizobia. of bacteria in the soil. So we want to make sure that what we are extracting is the rhizobia of interest. So we've done that by characterizing the rhizobia using the morphological characteristics, but we have also characterized using the molecular characterization. The molecular characterization was done by a lab in South Africa, Inkaba Biotech, because currently we don't have the capacity to do molecular characterization. I think in the country we tried to search, but we could not find any lab that can do that. So after the characterization, we have also conducted a number of screenhouse and field experiments just to evaluate the efficacy of the different isolates that we have collected from the different legumes. And then lastly, after undergoing all those processes, we have also managed to produce some inoculants for the selected food and the forage legumes. Next. Yeah, so the next few slides, I'll just show a couple of slides in terms of some of the data that we collect just to evaluate performance of the different isolates and the legumes. So on this slide, just looking at the plant height is one of the plant growth parameters that we measure to see the efficacy of the inoculant. So on this graph, we are just looking at the plant height of soybean at the different stages from 8 weeks after planting to 12 weeks after planting. So I think in the first week, at 8 weeks after planting, the differences were not much in terms of plant growth. But as the plant progresses in growth, we see that the inoculant that we are producing positively improves the biomass production in the legumes. So the similar story was observed in the other legumes. Next. The other parameter that we've also been following up is looking at the chlorophyll content, so the level of greenness in the legumes. So on this graph, we are looking at leaf chlorophyll content in soybean, cowpea, and the groundnut. Overall, what we got is that for soybean and the groundnut, the inoculant that we produced had a significant impact in terms of improving leaf chlorophyll content in groundnut and soybean. Not much difference observed in cowpea. Next. On this slide, one of the parameters that is key when evaluating efficiency of the inoculants is to look at nodulation characteristics. And under nodulation characteristics, we look at different parameters. We consider the plant vigor. We also consider the number of nodules that are produced. But we also look at the position of the nodules on the root, and also whether those nodules are actually fixing nitrogen. For the nodules that are fixing nitrogen, you take the nodule, you cut it, and then check the inside color. If it is red, then you are sure that is fixing nitrogen. If it's brown, black, it means maybe you've passed the right stage where it was fixing nitrogen, and now it's going towards senescence. So in summary, on this slide, what you are seeing, like the scores there, you are looking at the total score by summing up the performance of the legume against those 4 variables. So plant growth and vigor, the number of nodules that are produced, the position of the nodule on the root, and the color of the nodule. So overall, what we found out is that for all the three legumes, the use of the inoculant increased or improved the effectiveness of the nodulation, which means that also translates to increasing the potential of the legume to actually fix nitrogen. So if a farmer has not used that inoculant, it means there will also be a trade-off in terms of how much nitrogen would be fixed by that particular legume. Next. As I indicated that we do conduct different experiments, either in the greenhouse or in the field. So this slide is just looking at some of the field trials that we had during the main season, the rainfall season. So we had established these legume trials on campus. And we actually engaged also some of the undergraduate students as part of capacity building for them to learn about legumes and how inoculation can help to improve performance of these legumes. Next. Yeah, so from these field trials, we tried to test the inoculant that we are producing against some of the inoculants that are already being used on the market. What we saw on this slide, you see that there are no significant differences in terms of chlorophyll content, either at 6 weeks after planting or at 9 weeks after planting. So one of the observations that we had was that during the season, at some point there was a severe dry spell. So we think that that dry spell also affected the response of the crops to the different treatments. Though the trend still shows that you can still benefit by using inoculant in terms of enhancing productivity. But we also have to acknowledge that I think climate change is a real challenge. So when we are coming up with these interventions, we also have to think holistically what else should be added to the package to ensure that we are addressing multiple challenges that farmers face. Next. This slide is also just showing the grain yield from the same field trials that we had. What we also saw that is that there weren't much differences in terms of the grain that was produced, despite the soybean growing very well initially. But I think this is also linked to the drought and the dry spell that had hit the plants when they were at early reproductive stage. Nevertheless, you can see there that our new inoculant, so the bar graphs on the far end, you can see that there's a trend that the new inoculant is positively impacting on the productivity. But we still have now to think about these other challenges that are also key in terms of influencing productivity. In this case, the dry spells. On this slide, as I indicated that we are working on multiple legumes, I wanted just to share with you that as of now we have isolates for 6 legumes. So we have isolates for soybean, cowpea, common bean, pigeon pea, and the 2 forage legumes, Stylosanthes and Desmodium. So we can use these isolates to produce inoculants, and these have been characterized morphologically as well as using molecular characterization. Next. And in terms of the outputs, we are producing, we are still in the early stages, but I also brought the samples that just for you to appreciate the work that we are doing. These are the inoculants that we have produced under this project, but it's still work in progress. And we want to make sure we still work on this project to build on what so producing inoculants is just one of the key outputs, but now maintaining the quality of that inoculant is legumes. And as I indicated, that currently we have isolates for 6 legumes. And we still have to look at the aspects of how to maintain the quality and the shelf life of the inoculants. Yeah, before I go to the acknowledgements, our project, we're supposed to look at the mycorrhiza and the rhizobia, but for today, I was only sharing on the work that we've done on the rhizobia. We are very grateful to the financial support that we have received from the National Commission for Science and Technology under the Science Granting Council initiative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wes Muhango. I think she deserves another round of applause. Looking at the time, let me invite all the presenters up front here so that they can engage the audience. It's time for you, them questions for clarification. Let them come here first. You may want to sit, yeah? You may want to sit. You can be sharing this. I think so. Professor Fanuel Kapute, is you? Okay. You have it, the whole team, eh? Yeah, please, please. Okay, they are ready now to